Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rethink, Reconfigure, and Restart. COVID 19, as you know, has accelerated the challenges which we all face. One of the elements which we all face or talk about is risk. Sometimes I feel it is one of the most underappreciated issues. Yet, that is, if ignored, causes the biggest grief. So today, I have my colleague Manpreet Singh to discuss issues around risk, around navigating regulatory challenges, around strategic shift towards compliance. Manpreet, first and foremost, it is what you love doing the most. I really want to know how is the role of IA going to evolve in this crisis or because of this crisis? Will boards, will the management have a different expectation from the internal audit function?
Oh, absolutely, Dipankar. The world for internal audit has changed. There are four things that the boardrooms are asking, and that's really what sets the tone for the function. First, is there an emerging risk that I should be worried about? Is my company geared up to deal with this COVID shock? Is there a dilution of controls that has happened to keep the wheels of the business moving? Are there any emerging risks, emerging fraud risks that I should be worried about that are going to hit the company or the sector? And last but not the least, cyber, infosec continue to be heightened risks. And these are four things that an internal audit is being forced to address and create assurance on sitting in a remote environment. Now, how can that happen? The only way you could have done that and taken a shift of getting into some of these emerging areas, like focusing on liquidity, focusing on cost reduction, focusing on aspects around employee safety, only by using tools, technologies, bringing in predictive analytics in the way you run audits so that you're in a position to find that needle in a haystack. So the journey for internal audit has been around driving a digital transformation for its own function to be able to address these questions.
Thank you, Manpreet. That is very elucidating. The other issue which really troubles me, I'm sure as any other CEO, would be how do we manage factors, issues like black swan events impacting the larger organization, i.e., which we commonly known as enterprise risk. Is there something which we need to do more as leaders to address these sort of events, which to me are going to be very regular, maybe very different, but very regular in the future?
That's a tough one, Dipankar, and most boardrooms and CEOs are debating this topic. My take on this is threefold. First and foremost, risk functions will have to take a broader view, do an external environment scan, and be ready around their view on emerging risks that impact the companies. As they form a view on emerging risks and engage with boardrooms, scenario planning is going to be something that's going to be a way of working for most companies. Your business planning functions will work with scenario plans addressing each one of these emerging risks. Second point is each one of these black swan events have an impact on business that requires the whole organization to come together and holistically respond. That's not easy to achieve unless you worked on enterprise-wide resilience. What that means is that historically, the risk muscle that you build in one function needs to be a muscle that needs to be cascaded pretty much through the organization so that the company is more agile, functional leaders can come together and holistically speak the same language and address the issues and actually create an opportunity out of a crisis. Last but not the least, in such times, early warning system is going to be crucial. Every function, every part of the business needs to have predictive analytics and frameworks in place that help them preempt scenarios and respond much faster.
That's extremely interesting. The other piece, which frankly keeps me awake, and I bet you awake in a different way, is compliance. The cost of compliance is really increasing and is becoming onerous. What is your advice to businesses on this element?
In this world of uncertainty and rapid mistrust, CEOs are being forced to take a much more proactive and a strategic view to compliances. This is a view that goes much beyond just complying with the laws of the land. This is a view that goes into making your products, your services, and in fact, your brand much more reliable to the customers and the regulators. Now, that's a big ask. Let me bring this example to life. If you're an auto manufacturer, safety is going to be crucial in building the customer confidence. Safety, both in terms of physical and in terms of cyber and digital as you get towards smart cars. If you are a food aggregator, kitchen hygiene, food hygiene is going to make a difference and create an edge for your customers in believing in your platform. Now, obviously, this comes at a cost. As a CEO, you've got to be thinking about how do I still achieve that objective and yet be efficient, productive, and manage the cost. This can be done by taking an organizational wide view of cascading these compliance imperatives through the company. This requires embracing technology. This involves attacking the silos that are often built in the organization to address such issues. These are some of the ways with which you will achieve the objective and yet be able to manage the cost.
Thank you, Manpreet, for that. The other issue which is going to be here is work from home and its efficacy. We all appreciate the benefits work from home is bringing. Howsoever, the risks which are coming on the employee front, on the people front, are only now emerging. What are your clients talking to you about this issue? Is there any advice you have for our viewers?
Driving the global economy sitting out of home has never happened ever before. And while the initial signs of working from home were positive, productivity, cost benefits, clearly there have been positives that have come out of this. But let's also realize employees and people are social animals. And this elongated way of working from home could have its own cost. There could be a mass employee burnout, there could be morale issues, and this coupled with the fact that companies' ability to financially reward employees better than before amidst the stress and anxiety adds on to this exposure. So I think from a company agenda on around this area, it's employee safety, productivity, and well-being, which are going to be all crucial. There's a lot of work that's been done around the first two bits, and now there's a big opportunity to address the well-being issue. I see a lot of things that we've done around the organization, which I'm sure companies will soon start embracing. Dipankar, I'm passionate about risk, and I've truly enjoyed this conversation. Here's the last question for you from my side. We at PwC say risk needs to be mastered, not feared. You run a large consulting business, and amidst this complex times, how are you bringing that concept to life?
An interesting way to put it, Manpreet. Risk is to be mastered and not feared. The element which we all need to look for is how can our organizations be fit for future? Because at the end of the day, an organization which is relevant in the future will be managing its risks well. As a firm, we have been investing heavily around technology platforms, not today, but from last 4 to 5 years. Hence, frankly, when COVID hit us, we were one of the first organizations which literally turned to work from home in a flash. The second one is around enablement of our people, upskilling of our people around digital technologies, so that whatever we do as individuals is with the latest technologies and tools. This really helps us remain relevant to the client. Another aspect is around building trust in society, and how can we do that day after day after day. To me, if our people are thinking about how are we solving complex problems, how are we remaining relevant, I think so we are building trust in our society day after day. How are we innovating more? How are we being creative more? I think so these are all small elements which go there in that aspect. So together, this is how, to my view, we can master risk and not fear risk. Thank you, Manpreet, for such an engaging conversation, such an interesting conversation. People may believe that the topic of risk may be a bit boring or mundane, but you certainly changed that. Friends, the process of rethinking, reconfiguring, restarting, whilst in COVID times is important, I think so it has to be part of our DNA. Even once COVID ends, this is something which we should always be doing. So till next week with another episode of relevance to all of us, stay safe and stay healthy.